and the rancher who defied the village for her. In the heart of the desert, where the wind swept freely across the wide plains and the mountains seemed to touch the sky, there was an Apache village that held stories older than anyone could remember. The village was small, yet full of life. Children ran barefoot on the dusty paths, women carried water from the river, and the men hunted and cared for the land with skill passed down through generations. Among all the families, the chief's household held a special place in the hearts of the villagers. And within that household lived a girl who was unlike anyone else. Her name was Ahioka. Ahioka was the daughter of the chief. From the moment she was born, her eyes had not opened to the light. She could not see the faces of her family, the colors of the sky, or the beauty of the rivers that flowed nearby. But the lack of sight had not diminished her spirit. In fact, it had shaped her in ways that gave her a quiet strength and a sense of awareness that often surprised those around her. She felt the world deeply through the sounds of birds, the rustling of leaves, the softness of her mother's touch, and the rhythm of her father's voice. Her father, the chief, loved her more than words could express. He would sit by her side for hours, telling her stories of their ancestors, of battles fought and lands protected, of the traditions that had kept their people alive for centuries. Ahioka, he would say gently, the world is bigger than our village. One day you will feel it all with your own heart, not just your eyes. And though he feared for her safety in a world that could be cruel to someone who could not see, he also knew that her mind and her spirit were sharp and capable. Ahioka's mother was equally devoted. She taught her daughter to recognize the scents of plants, to feel the wind's direction, and to sense danger in the smallest changes in the environment. The world has many ways of speaking, Ahioka, she would say. If you listen carefully, it will tell you everything you need to know. Ahioka learned to trust her other senses completely, and over time, she could move through the village with confidence. She could find her way to the river without anyone guiding her, know which herbs were safe to gather, and even help other children navigate the narrow paths of the village. Despite her abilities, some villagers treated her with pity. They whispered that a blind girl could never fully participate in the life of the tribe. But Ahioka's courage and curiosity often silenced those doubts. She asked questions, she explored, and she laughed in ways that reminded everyone that a person's strength was not measured by their ability to see, but by the size of their heart. Not far from the village, beyond the hills where the wild grasses swayed, lived a rancher named Elias Harper. He was a man of determination and stubbornness, known for living by his own rules rather than those of the village or anyone else. His ranch stretched across the dry land, filled with horses and cattle, and he worked from sunrise to sunset to care for them. Life had taught him to be resilient, to stand alone if necessary, and to challenge the expectations that others tried to impose on him. Elias had heard about Ahioka long before he ever met her. He heard whispers in the market about the blind daughter of the chief, and he found himself intrigued. There was something about her story that stayed in his mind. He imagined a girl who, despite her blindness, moved through life with courage. One day, their paths crossed, though neither could have predicted the importance of that meeting. It was a busy morning at the market. Villagers were selling vegetables, handmade crafts, and dried meat. The air was filled with the calls of sellers, the laughter of children, and the gentle clatter of baskets. Elias had come to trade some supplies for his ranch, and as he walked through the stalls, he noticed a small figure moving confidently through the crowd. It was Ahioka. She moved with careful steps, but her head was held high, and her voice guided those around her. When a child tripped on a stone, she was there immediately, taking the child's hand and helping them to their feet. Elias watched quietly from a distance. He was impressed, not by pity or sympathy, but by respect. He saw strength and intelligence in her actions, and something stirred inside him that he could not explain. There was a grace in the way she interacted with the world, a sense of understanding that went beyond what most people could see with their eyes. That brief moment was enough for him to know that he wanted to meet her, to know the girl whose spirit seemed so full despite the darkness she could not see. The chief's daughter and the rancher did not speak that day. Their encounter was silent, but the impression was lasting. Elias returned to his ranch with a mind full of curiosity. He wondered about her life, how she experienced the world, and what thoughts passed through her mind. Meanwhile, Ahioka, unaware of the eyes watching her, continued her day with laughter and purpose, feeling the warmth of the sun and the gentle pull of the earth beneath her feet. Over the following weeks, Elias found himself returning to the village more often. He would not intrude, but he watched Ahioka from afar, fascinated by her confidence and her ability to navigate the world in ways he had never imagined. He began leaving small gifts near her usual path, her favorite herbs, fruits, or trinkets from the ranch, items that he hoped she would notice and enjoy. Slowly, a connection began to form, built on curiosity, respect, and an unspoken understanding that both of them were different from those around them. Ahioka began to sense the presence of someone new. She could hear the careful steps of a man approaching, the soft whistle of a bird that Elias often carried with him, and sometimes the faint smell of leather and hay from his ranch. She was cautious at first, unsure if this person could be trusted. But there was something in the air, a feeling of safety and kindness that reassured her. Her intuition told her that this stranger meant no harm. It was during one quiet afternoon by the river that their first real conversation began. Elias sat a few feet away, keeping his distance, while Ahioka ran her fingers over the water, feeling its coolness and listening to the gentle flow. "You like the river?" he asked softly. Ahioka turned her face in his direction, smiling. "Yes, I like how it speaks without words. You can hear everything if you listen." Elias smiled, impressed by her words. "You listen better than most people I know." And so it began, a friendship that neither fully understood but both felt drawn to. They spent time together in small moments, learning from each other. Elias showed Ahioka the ranch from a distance, describing the horses, the way the wind moved through the fields, and the strength it took to care for animals. Ahioka taught Elias patience and observation, showing him how to notice the small details in life, how to understand people without needing to see them fully. In those days, the world felt wide and full of possibility for both of them. The village remained unaware of the growing bond, and the outside world seemed distant. For Ahioka, the blind daughter of the chief, life was filled with sounds, textures, and voices that told her stories far richer than sight alone could ever provide. For Elias, the rancher who lived by his own rules, life had found a new meaning in the courage and spirit of a girl who could not see yet understood so much. And in that quiet desert village, where tradition and nature met, a story began that would change not just their lives, but the lives of everyone around them. It was a story of curiosity, courage, and the unspoken understanding between two souls who, despite their differences, found a rare and enduring connection. As the weeks passed, Elias and Ahioka's connection grew stronger. What had started as quiet curiosity became a friendship that neither of them had expected, yet both cherished deeply. They continued to meet in secret, usually at the edge of the village where the river curved gently, and the soft grass made a comfortable place to sit. The villagers were busy with their daily lives, tending to the land and caring for their families, unaware of the growing bond between the rancher and the chief's daughter. Ahioka found a new sense of freedom with Elias. He described the world beyond the village with such vivid detail that she felt as if she could reach out and touch it. He told her about the open plains, the forests where the wind whispered through the trees, and the mountains that seemed to stretch endlessly. She listened, her imagination painting each scene in colors she had never seen but felt in her mind. For the first time, she realized that the world could be far bigger than the small village she had always known. Elias, on his part, was captivated by Ahioka's way of perceiving life. She noticed things he often overlooked: the subtle shifts in the wind, the quiet songs of birds, the faint traces of animals passing nearby. She spoke of feelings and patterns, of understanding people by their voices and gestures. He began to see the world in a way he never had before, learning that sight alone was only a part of understanding life. In her presence, he felt a quiet wisdom that humbled him and yet inspired him to be a better man. Their secret meetings were not without challenge. The village had its own rules, and outsiders, especially ranchers like Elias, were not always welcomed. Whispers began to circulate. Some villagers noticed Elias near the river or at the edge of the village and began to question his intentions. "Why is he always with the chief's daughter?" they murmured. "What could he want from a girl who cannot see?" The questions were small at first, harmless like a breeze passing through the trees. But soon, suspicion grew, and the gossip reached the ears of others in the village. Even the chief, Ahioka's father, noticed the change. He saw the way she would return from their secret meetings with a lightness in her step, a smile on her lips, and a glow in her voice. At first, he felt protective, worried that a stranger could take advantage of his daughter, but he also knew her spirit was strong. He remembered the lessons he had taught her, the independence he had nurtured, and he understood that Ahioka needed the freedom to explore life in her own way. Still, he remained cautious, knowing the balance between love and caution was delicate. The village elders, however, were less forgiving. They called for meetings, discussing whether it was appropriate for Ahioka to spend time with someone from outside their tribe. Some argued that it could bring dishonor, while others feared that Elias might not respect the traditions and ways of the Apache people. Ahioka, unaware of the full weight of their discussions, continued her time with Elias, enjoying the moments where the world felt open and safe. One afternoon, Elias brought Ahioka to a hidden spot near the river, a place she had never visited before. The water was calm, reflecting the sky above, and the grass was soft under her feet. "I thought you might like to feel the river here," he said, his voice gentle. He guided her carefully, describing every detail so that she could imagine it. "The water flows slower here. You can hear it ripple over the rocks, and if you listen closely, you can feel the tiny currents brushing against your fingers." Ahioka's fingers traced the cool water, her face lifted as if she could feel the sky above. "It is beautiful," she whispered. "I can hear it dancing, moving, speaking. It feels alive." Elias smiled, watching her confidence grow. He realized that her blindness had not made her weak. It had made her sensitive, aware, and deeply connected to the world around her. Their friendship deepened as they shared more about themselves. Elias spoke of his childhood on the ranch, of the long days and the hard work it took to survive. He told her about the animals he cared for, the struggles he faced, and the moments of joy that made it all worthwhile. Ahioka listened intently, asking questions and showing genuine interest. In turn, she shared her own world, her family, the village traditions, and the lessons her parents had taught her. She spoke of the stories of her ancestors, of the lessons hidden in nature, and the wisdom that came from listening and observing carefully. Despite the growing closeness, challenges remained. Some villagers began leaving subtle warnings, hinting that Elias should stay away. Children would occasionally run up to Ahioka, whispering about what they had heard. "They say he is not to be trusted," they said, their voices filled with innocent fear and curiosity. Ahioka, however, remained calm. She had learned to trust her own senses and her heart. "I know him," she would reply softly. "He is a good man. He respects me and my family." One evening, as the sun set behind the mountains, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold, Elias stayed longer than usual. He spoke of dreams he had never shared with anyone before, dreams of traveling beyond the plains, of seeing the world and learning all that life had to offer. Ahioka listened quietly, imagining the places he described and feeling the excitement in his words. For a moment the world seemed limitless, and both of them felt a connection that went beyond friendship. Yet, even in these moments of peace, the reality of their situation remained. They both understood that their friendship was unusual, and that the village might never fully accept it. Elias faced the possibility of hostility from those who did not understand him, while Ahioka risked the disapproval of her family and her people. Still, they found strength in each other, believing that their bond was worth protecting. The bond between them grew not only through words but through actions. Elias would show Ahioka how to ride a horse, guiding her with patience as she learned to feel the movement beneath her. She would laugh as the horse moved, sensing every shift in its body, every rhythm of its stride. In turn, Ahioka taught Elias to slow down, to notice the small things in life that often went unseen: the pattern of a bird's song, the texture of a leaf, the quiet harmony of the world around them. Their secret friendship became a sanctuary, a place where both could escape the pressures of the world and simply be themselves. Elias admired Ahioka's courage, while she appreciated his determination and willingness to see beyond her blindness. They had found a rare understanding, a connection that transcended appearances and expectations. But as their friendship strengthened, so did the whispers. Villagers began questioning the intentions of a white rancher spending so much time with the chief's daughter. Some tried to warn Elias away, hinting at danger or misfortune if he continued. Others confronted Ahioka, suggesting that she should avoid him for her own safety. Yet with every challenge, their bond grew stronger. They had discovered something rare: trust, respect, and a shared sense of adventure that neither was willing to give up. One day, Elias brought Ahioka a gift, a small leather-bound journal. "I thought you might like to write or draw what you feel," he said. "Even if you cannot see it, you can describe it with words, and one day someone else can read it and know your world." Ahioka's fingers traced the cover and she smiled. "Thank you," she whispered. "It is the most beautiful gift I have ever received." And so, life continued in this delicate balance. The village carried on with its routines, the river flowed endlessly, and the mountains stood tall as silent witnesses. Elias and Ahioka nurtured their friendship, learning from each other and growing in ways neither had imagined. They discovered that courage was not only in facing danger, but in trusting, in believing in someone beyond the walls of custom and expectation. By the end of this period, their friendship had become more than a secret. It was a quiet revolution of trust, respect, and understanding. Each meeting, each shared story, each gentle gesture strengthened the bond that neither could deny. And though the world around them remained cautious, even suspicious, they knew that they had found something that mattered more than fear or gossip, a connection that could change not only their lives, but the way they understood the world itself. In the quiet of the desert, under the vast sky and near the flowing river, a blind girl and a determined rancher began to teach each other that the heart could see far more than the eyes ever could. And in doing so, they began a journey that would test their courage, challenge tradition, and ultimately show that friendship and trust could be powerful enough to reshape the world around them. The quiet bond between Ahioka and Elias had grown into something deeper, a friendship, built on trust, understanding, and shared moments of discovery. But life in the village was rarely simple, and the world outside their secret meetings began to encroach upon them. The village elders, always attentive to tradition, had started to notice the growing closeness between the blind daughter of the chief and the white rancher who visited so often. Rumors spread quietly at first, soft whispers among women gathering herbs, children repeating things they did not fully understand, men exchanging wary glances. Yet the chief, Ahioka's father, still hoped that the connection was harmless, though he remained watchful. One afternoon, as the golden sun dipped low over the horizon, casting long shadows across the village, Ahioka's mother called her aside. "Ahioka," she said gently, "there are matters you must know. The elders have been speaking. They believe it is time for you to consider a future within our traditions." Ahioka's heart tightened. She had long sensed the village's disapproval, but hearing it spoken aloud made the weight of expectation heavy. "What do you mean?" she asked softly, her voice steady despite the flutter of worry in her chest. "There is a proposal," her mother explained. "From another tribe, they wish to form an alliance through marriage. It is considered honorable, and it would secure peace and friendship for our people." Ahioka closed her eyes, imagining the life they expected her to live. She could feel the warmth of her parents' intentions, yet a part of her rebelled. Her time with Elias had opened her eyes to a world beyond the village, a life filled with freedom, friendship, and choices made from the heart rather than obligation. The thought of being bound by an arrangement, no matter how honorable, made her chest tighten with fear and frustration. Meanwhile, Elias continued his visits, unaware of the full depth of the plans. He had sensed tension among the villagers, the cautious glances and whispered words, but he did not know the extent of the challenge that awaited them. That afternoon, he found Ahioka sitting by the river, her hands brushing the water with a restless energy. "They are talking about marriage," she admitted, her voice trembling slightly. "They have chosen someone for me, and I do not know what to do." Elias reached out, careful not to touch her in a way that would startle her. "You don't have to make any decision now," he said quietly. "Whatever happens, we will face it together. I will not leave your side." Ahioka felt a warmth in his words, a reassurance that bolstered her courage. Yet the fear remained. The villagers had rules, traditions that had guided generations, and her defiance could bring disapproval or even anger. She wondered if love and friendship could truly stand against such expectations, but the thought of giving up her independence and the connection she shared with Elias filled her with a quiet determination. Over the following days, the village became a place of subtle tension. Elders visited her home more often, asking questions, offering advice, and emphasizing the importance of duty. Children who once ran freely to play with her now hesitated, their whispers carrying the weight of curiosity and caution. Even her friends were conflicted, unsure whether to support her choices or heed the advice of the elders. Ahioka found herself torn between loyalty to her family and the desire to follow her own heart. She remembered her father's words from long ago. "One day, you will feel the world with your own heart." Those words echoed in her mind, giving her strength. She realized that listening to her own heart was not an act of rebellion but of courage. Elias, meanwhile, faced his own challenges. The whispers about him grew louder, and some villagers began to confront him directly. "Why do you spend so much time with the chief's daughter?" they demanded, their voices edged with suspicion. "Do you not understand the rules of our village?" Elias met their questions with calm determination. "I respect your people, your traditions, and your village," he said steadily. "But I also respect Ahioka. I will not harm her and I will not abandon her. She has a right to choose her own path." These words, though sincere, did little to calm the growing unease. The elders convened, debating whether a stronger stance was necessary. Some feared that Elias' influence could lead Ahioka to make choices that would dishonor the village, while others saw the potential for understanding and unity between different worlds. Amid this tension, Ahioka and Elias continued to meet in secret, cherishing the brief moments of peace they could create together. One evening, Elias brought Ahioka to the edge of his ranch, a place she had never seen before. The air was filled with the scent of hay and earth, the quiet rustling of horses moving in the stalls, and the distant call of the wind across the plains. He guided her gently, describing every detail so she could imagine it fully. "These are the horses," he said. "They are strong, patient, and gentle if treated with care. You can feel their strength through your hands, the warmth of their bodies, and the rhythm of their breathing. Ahioka reached out, running her hands along the horse's flanks, feeling the muscles beneath the fur, sensing the power and calm within them. She laughed softly, delighting in the new sensations. "They are magnificent," she said. "I can feel their hearts through my hands, and they seem to understand me somehow." Elias smiled, encouraged by her joy. "Just like people," he said. "If you treat them with respect and patience, they respond in kind." Their shared time became a sanctuary, a place where they could escape the pressures of the village and simply exist as themselves. They laughed, shared stories, and learned from one another. Ahioka taught Elias the subtle art of listening, of observing without needing sight, of noticing the small details that others often overlooked. Elias taught Ahioka practical skills, from handling animals to understanding the land, giving her a sense of independence that few in the village could imagine for a blind girl. Yet, even in these moments of peace, the challenge of the proposed marriage loomed. Ahioka knew that she could not avoid the issue forever. Her family and the elders expected her to comply, and defying them could bring consequences that neither she nor Elias had faced before. The weight of tradition pressed heavily upon her, yet she found courage in the connection they shared. One day, as she walked through the village, she overheard a conversation between two elders. "She must obey," one said. "It is the way of our people. If she chooses otherwise, she risks dishonor." Ahioka's chest tightened, but she held her head high. She knew she could not change the rules of the village overnight, but she could choose how she responded. She could listen to her heart and seek a path that honored both her spirit and her family. That evening, she met Elias at their usual spot by the river. She spoke with quiet resolve. "I cannot accept a life chosen for me," she said. "I respect my family and our people, but I must follow my own heart. I cannot give up what I have learned about life and freedom." Elias took her hand gently, feeling the strength in her words. "Then we face this together," he said. "Whatever the village decides, I will stand by you. We will find a way that honors your choices and the respect you hold for your people." Ahioka smiled, a mixture of relief and determination on her face. "Thank you," she whispered. "Your support gives me courage I did not know I had." In the days that followed, their bond became a quiet rebellion, a test of love, courage, and respect. They continued their secret meetings, drawing strength from one another, while the village slowly became aware of their defiance. The tension grew, but so did their understanding of one another. They learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the willingness to face challenges together. Elias and Ahioka's friendship became a source of inspiration, not just for themselves, but for those who began to notice their courage. Even the chief, though torn between tradition and his daughter's independence, began to see the strength in her choices. He remembered his own lessons about listening to the heart, and he realized that Ahioka's path might be different from what the elders envisioned, but it was no less honorable. As the days turned into weeks, the question of marriage remained, looming over their lives. Yet Ahioka and Elias faced it with patience, wisdom, and a growing determination to honor both their bond and the traditions that had shaped her world. They knew that the trials ahead would test their courage, their faith, and their love, but they were ready to meet those challenges together, trusting in the power of their connection to guide them through the uncertainties of life. In this stage of their journey, Ahioka and Elias discovered that love and friendship were not just emotions, but forces that could inspire bravery, challenge expectation, and bring out the best in those who dared to follow their hearts. And in the quiet moments by the river, among the trees and the flowing water, they found the strength to face whatever lay ahead together. The tension in the village had reached a peak. Whispers turned into conversations, and conversations edged toward arguments. The elders could no longer ignore the unusual friendship between Ahioka, the chief's blind daughter, and Elias, the rancher who dared to defy the unspoken rules of the village. Yet, amidst this growing pressure, Ahioka's spirit remained unbroken. She had spent years learning to trust her own senses, and she had discovered that courage often meant standing against expectation rather than following it. One morning, the chief fell ill. It began as a simple fever, but it worsened quickly, leaving him weak and bedridden. The village grew anxious, for the chief was not only the leader but the heart of their community. Everyone came to offer help, including Ahioka, who stayed close by her father's side, listening to the soft rhythm of his breathing, sensing every change in his condition. Elias, too, was there, standing quietly in the background, ready to assist however he could. The elders saw this as an opportunity to pressure Ahioka into following the path they had chosen for her. They approached her in hushed tones, speaking of duty, honor, and the alliance that awaited through marriage. "Your father's health is fragile," one elder warned. "Now more than ever, you must fulfill your duty to the tribe. This is not the time to think of your own desires." Ahioka listened carefully, her heart heavy but her mind clear. She knew she could respect her father and the traditions while still choosing her own path. "I understand your concerns," she said softly, "but my choices do not dishonor my father or my people. They honor my life, and the life my father has taught me to lead." The elders' expressions hardened. They could not comprehend a choice that went against centuries of custom. Many villagers began to murmur, their loyalty divided between tradition and the courage displayed by the chief's daughter. Some admired her spirit, while others feared the consequences of her defiance. Yet Ahioka remained calm, a quiet strength radiating from her that drew the attention of everyone present. It was during this tense time that a natural disaster struck. A fire broke out in the dry grasslands surrounding the village, spreading rapidly toward the homes and fields. Panic swept through the community as smoke filled the air and flames threatened everything in their path. Villagers scrambled to save their families, livestock, and belongings, but confusion and fear slowed their efforts. In the midst of chaos, Ahioka and Elias took action. Elias led groups of villagers, instructing them to create fire breaks and carry water from the river, while Ahioka guided those who were lost or injured, her heightened senses allowing her to detect danger even without sight. She listened to the crackling of the fire, the cries of frightened children, and the calls of adults, moving with precision to keep everyone safe. One particularly tense moment came when a small group of children became trapped on the edge of the fire. Ahioka, sensing their fear and the intensity of the flames, directed Elias to lead them to safety. Together, they worked seamlessly, Ahioka's awareness and Elias' strength forming a partnership that was as instinctive as it was extraordinary. The villagers watched in awe, realizing that her blindness did not hinder her but had sharpened her perception in ways that were invaluable in a crisis. After hours of exhausting effort, the fire was finally brought under control. Homes were saved and livestock were protected, though the grasslands bore the marks of the blaze. In the aftermath, the villagers gathered to acknowledge the courage displayed by those who had risked their lives. Many could not hide their surprise at how effectively a blind girl and an outsider had helped protect the community. It was then that Ahioka made her decision public. Standing beside Elias, she spoke with quiet authority. "I respect our traditions and the wisdom of our elders," she said, "but I cannot live a life chosen for me by others. I have learned to see the world in my own way, and I will continue to make choices guided by my heart and the strength of those who support me." The crowd was silent. Some murmured in disbelief, others in admiration. The elders, though still hesitant, could not deny the truth in her words. The fire had revealed not only her courage but also the value of her independence. In that moment, Ahioka's defiance was not rebellion, it was leadership, showing that strength could come in many forms. Elias took her hand, offering support and reassurance. "Whatever comes next," he said, We face it together. Your choices are yours to make, and I will stand by you." In the following days, the village slowly adjusted to this new reality. While some elders remained cautious, many villagers began to see Ahioka in a different light, not just as the chief's blind daughter, but as a person of insight, courage, and wisdom. Children admired her bravery, and adults recognized the value of listening to those who thought differently. The fire had not only tested their physical strength, but had reshaped the way the community viewed courage, independence, and partnership. Despite the growing acceptance, challenges remained. Some families were still uncomfortable with Elia's presence, and whispers of disapproval lingered. But Ahioka and Elias approached each day with patience and understanding, continuing to show through their actions that respect, care, and courage could bridge divides. They spent time together exploring the village, helping with daily tasks, and preparing for the future with a quiet determination. One morning, Ahioka's father, now recovering from his illness, called her to his side. His voice was weak but steady. "You have shown wisdom beyond your years," he said. "You have saved lives, guided our people, and made choices with courage. I see now that your heart knows the path you must follow. I support you, even if it is not the path I imagined." Ahioka's eyes filled with tears, not of sadness but of gratitude. She had earned her father's trust and respect, not through defiance alone, but through courage, intelligence, and compassion. Elias stood beside her, proud of her strength and relieved by the chief's words. Together, they continued their lives in the village, navigating the delicate balance between tradition and independence. Their bond grew stronger each day, rooted in trust, mutual respect, and shared experience. They learned that true courage was not the absence of fear, but the willingness to face fear and uncertainty with integrity and love. The fire and the chief's illness had marked a turning point. The village began to recognize that life could be richer when courage and wisdom were honored, regardless of convention. Ahioka and Elias had not only defied expectation, they had demonstrated the power of partnership, showing that strength could come from unexpected places. As the days passed, Ahioka reflected on the lessons she had learned. She realized that leadership was not about sight or strength alone, but about listening, understanding, and acting with compassion. She had discovered that independence and community were not mutually exclusive. One could honor tradition while also forging a personal path. And she had found in Elias a companion who shared her values, respected her choices, and offered unwavering support. Their story became known quietly throughout the village. People spoke of the blind girl who had guided her people through danger, of the rancher who had stood by her side, and of the courage it took to make choices in the face of pressure. The fire had tested their resilience, and they had emerged not only unbroken but stronger, respected, and admired. In those moments of reflection, Ahioka and Elias understood that the journey ahead would continue to be filled with challenges. Traditions would still weigh heavily, expectations would still loom, and the outside world would always pose questions. But they had discovered something far more powerful than fear or opposition, the bond of trust, respect, and love that could guide them through whatever came next. In the quiet evenings by the river, they would sit together, listening to the water and feeling the rhythm of the world around them. They spoke of dreams, hopes, and possibilities, planning for a future that honored both their hearts and the community that had shaped them. And as they held hands and shared stories, the village slowly began to see that courage, love, and wisdom were not bound by sight, race, or tradition. They were qualities that could belong to anyone brave enough to embrace them. Through the fire and the illness, the whispers of disapproval had been replaced by admiration and understanding. Ahioka had proven that independence and respect could coexist, that strength came in many forms, and that the heart's guidance could be as powerful as the eye's vision. Elias had shown that loyalty and courage could overcome suspicion and fear, that love and friendship were worth risking reputation and comfort. Together, they had not only survived the trials before them, they had reshaped the understanding of courage, choice, and partnership in their village. And so, life moved forward. The bond between the blind daughter of the chief and the rancher who defied expectation grew stronger each day. They faced the future with confidence, knowing that the journey ahead would be challenging, but trusting that the love, respect, and courage they shared would guide them through every trial, every expectation, and every moment of uncertainty. Time passed, and the village slowly adjusted to the changes brought by courage, trust, and unexpected partnership. Ahioka, the chief's blind daughter, and Elias, the determined rancher who had stood by her side, were no longer seen as outsiders or troublemakers. They had earned respect through their courage, their wisdom, and the acts of bravery that had saved lives. Yet the journey toward complete acceptance had not been simple, for traditions and old expectations still lingered in quiet corners of the village. Ahioka's father had fully recovered from his illness, and his admiration for his daughter had grown deeper. He realized that her courage, independence, and insight were qualities that had always made her special. The villagers also began to notice her value, not just as the chief's daughter, but as a leader in her own right. She had shown that wisdom could come from listening, understanding, and acting with compassion, not merely from age or authority. Elias remained by her side, quietly supporting her in all things. He had become a part of the community, though he never fully abandoned his identity as a rancher from beyond the village. Through his actions, the villagers saw that he was trustworthy, kind, and capable, and gradually suspicion turned to respect. Children would run to him with questions about horses and the land, women would ask for advice about caring for animals, and men would nod in silent acknowledgement of his courage and skill. As their bond grew stronger, Ahioka and Elias began to think about the future. They knew that life would bring new challenges, but they also understood the importance of planning for a life together, a life that respected the traditions of the Apache people while honoring their own desires. They began to work closely with the village, finding ways to blend their worlds in harmony. Elias taught villagers practical skills from his ranch, while Ahioka shared knowledge about herbs, animals, and the wisdom she had gained from her unique way of perceiving the world. Their love for each other became a quiet but powerful force in the village. It was not loud or boastful, but it inspired others to consider the strength found in trust, patience, and respect. Young couples began to see that love could exist alongside tradition, and elders slowly acknowledged that individual choice could coexist with community values. Ahioka and Elias became a living example of balance, showing that one could honor the past without being trapped by it. One day, as they walked along the river where they had first truly connected, Elias spoke with quiet certainty. Ahioka, we have faced so much together already. We have shown courage, respect, and love. I want us to build a life together openly, without fear. Will you share that life with me? Ahioka's fingers brushed against his, feeling the warmth and strength in his touch. Elias, she said softly, I have never doubted your heart. You have stood by me through challenges, guided me, and respected me. I want to share my life with you, and together we will honor both our worlds. Their decision was met with a mixture of joy and relief. The chief, seeing the sincerity and devotion in their relationship, offered his blessing. You have both shown wisdom, courage, and respect, he said. I see now that love, when guided by honor and understanding, strengthens both individuals and the community. Go forward together and know that you have my support. With their union blessed, Ahioka and Elias began to weave their lives together. They worked on the ranch and within the village, teaching and learning, helping and guiding. The villagers came to rely on their skills, knowledge, and judgment, recognizing that their bond had brought strength and harmony to the community. Ahioka, though blind, became a symbol of leadership and insight, proving that true vision comes from the heart and mind, not just the eyes. They faced challenges, of course. Life in the village and on the ranch was never simple. There were seasons of drought, illness among animals, and disputes among neighbors. Yet together, they faced every difficulty with patience and courage. Elia's practical skills and Ahioka's intuition complemented each other perfectly, allowing them to solve problems and guide the community with wisdom and care. Children grew up hearing their story, learning lessons of courage, respect, and the importance of trusting oneself while honoring others. Elders spoke of their deeds with admiration, recounting how the blind daughter had guided her people through danger, and how the outsider had stood by her side with loyalty and honor. Their story became a living legend, a tale not of rebellion, but of courage, partnership, and the blending of worlds. In quiet moments, Ahioka would sit by the river, feeling the water flowing over her fingers, listening to the wind rustle the leaves and sensing the life around her. Elias would sit beside her, speaking softly of plans for the ranch, the village, and the life they wanted to build together. They dreamed of expanding the ranch, planting new crops, teaching young villagers the skills they had learned, and ensuring that future generations would grow up understanding that courage, love, and respect could coexist with tradition. The village gradually changed. Where there had once been suspicion and fear, there was now acceptance and admiration. People began to see that courage could take many forms, that leadership was not defined solely by tradition, and that love built on trust and respect could strengthen the bonds of community. Ahioka and Elias had not only built a life together, they had left a legacy that would influence generations to come. Ahioka's parents watched with pride as their daughter flourished. Her mother often spoke of the wisdom Ahioka had gained through her experiences, and her father saw the strength and leadership that had always been within her, now fully recognized by the community. The elders, too, came to respect her choices, realizing that the village had grown stronger because of her courage and Elias' loyalty. Their life together was simple yet full of meaning. Each day brought work, laughter, challenges, and joy. They celebrated the seasons, honored the traditions that mattered, and created new ones that reflected their shared values. Through it all, they remained devoted to each other, their love serving as both a foundation and a guide. As years passed, the story of the blind daughter and the rancher became a lesson for all who lived in the village. Children grew up hearing of their courage, adults remembered their wisdom, and the community understood that true strength lay not in sight alone, nor in rigid adherence to tradition, but in the heart, in partnership, and in the courage to choose one's path. Even as time wore on, Ahioka and Elias continued to explore life together, finding joy in the small moments, the feel of the wind on their faces, the sound of children playing, the quiet flow of the river, and the rhythm of the land. They knew that the world would always bring challenges, but they also knew that they had each other, and that together they could face anything. In their later years, the village looked upon them not just as individuals, but as a symbol of what was possible when courage, love, and respect were allowed to guide life. Their legacy was clear: a life lived with integrity, a bond built on trust, and a community that had learned to see beyond appearances to the true strength within. Ahioka, the girl who had been blind from birth, had become a woman whose vision had touched everyone around her. Elias, the rancher who had once lived on the edge of the village, had become a man whose loyalty and courage had reshaped a community. Together, they had proven that love and respect could overcome fear, that partnership could challenge expectation, and that one's heart could guide the way through life's trials. And so, the story of Ahioka and Elias came to represent more than their personal journey. It became a tale of hope, courage, and enduring love, a story that reminded everyone that even in the face of fear and tradition, One could choose the path of the heart, inspire change, and leave a lasting mark on the world. They lived the rest of their lives side by side, teaching, guiding, and loving. And in the quiet of the desert, where the wind swept across the plains and the river flowed endlessly, their story remained, a testament to courage, to love, and to the power of choosing one's own way.